Welcome back to another episode of the Field of 68's College Basketball Offseason Grades. Today, we are going to be breaking down the Baylor Bears, who lost pretty much all of their starting lineup from a season ago. They did lose, Jeff, their entire backcourt. Adam Flagler's gone. Keontae George is gone. Both of those were somewhat expected. I don't know how many people expected LJ Cryer to leave and transfer to Houston. They lost their five-man, Flo Thamba, who feels like he's been there for about 27 years. He's finally graduated at the ripe old age of 43. They bring back Jalen Bridges, which is a nice piece, a guy with a little bit of potential. They bring back Langston Love, who was a five-star recruit before he tore his ACL. They bring back Jonathan Chamwachachu, who actually was kind of impressive coming off of the knee injury that he had this past season, as well as Josh Ajianwuna and Caleb Lohner. I think the headline news, though, they bring in two guards that I think we really need to pay attention to. Ray J. Dennis, a transfer that averaged 19.5 points at Toledo last season, and Jacoby Walter, a five-star top 10 prospect, 6'5", scoring guard, off-ball player, but a really good, talented piece, as well as Miro Little, a top 40 prospect, Jaden Nunn, who averaged 9.3 points at VCU, and Eve Missy, a 6'10" center that is a top 40 recruit, depending on the outlet that you look at. What do you make of Scott Drew's offseason?
I mean, I think certainly you're prepared for the loss of Flagler and Keontae George, but, right now, if you told me, hey, you got LJ Cryer back, I'd feel a lot differently. They don't have a dude. They just don't have a guy yet. Now, again, maybe Jacoby Walter is going to be that guy, but again, that's hard to ask of a freshman, right? Even a highly touted freshman. Keontae George was that a year ago, and he put up numbers offensively, but defensively he was a mess. And, I just think, it's like their top seven solid. They're solid, 7, 8, maybe even go to 9, but who's that dude on this team? The good thing is your defense is going to be better because you're bigger. You're bigger in the backcourt, right? Like that was a major issue last year when you went in with Flagler and Cryer. They were two small guards that people could take advantage of. And then Keontae George couldn't guard. So they'll be better defensively. They're just not going to be nearly as good offensively.
Yeah, so that is my single biggest issue with them, right? When they had that run of 3 years where they were a number one seed in 2020 in the tournament that got canceled. They won the tournament in 2021. And they were number one in the country, 15-0 before injuries kind of decimated that 2022 season, right? The thing that made that team so great was not only were they elite offensively, but they were somewhere between a top 5 and a top 15 defense in the country the entire season. When they had Mark Vital, when they had off night Davion Mitchell, when they had dudes like that, Jonathan Chamwachachu before the injury, they were like just a beast, a monster on the defensive end of the floor. And they weren't that last season. What they were was one of the most efficient offenses in college basketball because they had absolute killers in their backcourt. Adam Flagler was a killer. LJ Cryer was a killer. Keontae George was a bucket. And they put Jalen Bridges at the 4 as a floor spacer, and you couldn't guard them. You couldn't stop them. Now I have questions about what they're going to be defensively. And I also have questions about, are they going to be able to be a super efficient offense with this group? I don't think that they have killers in their backcourt, right? Like Ray J. Dennis is a good player. I don't know if he's a guy that's going to, be able to get you 20 or 25 on a given night in the Big 12. Jaden Nunn, I think, is a nice piece, a nice off-ball piece, a guy that's going to be able to do a job. Just played a whole season or a couple seasons at VCU where you do nothing but guard. Is he going to be able to score? Langston Love, I want him to be great, but we haven't seen him be great coming off of that knee injury. Jacoby Walter is going to be a freshman stepping into the Big 12. Keontae George is the outlier where he averaged 15 a game as a freshman in the Big 12. Freshmen don't do that in the Big 12, right? Jalen Bridges, super talented guy, not a number one piece. I just don't know where they don't have it. In the past,
they got to do it collectively, Rob. They got to do it with 5 guys that average between 8 and 12 or 13 points a game. That's how they're going to do it. Bridges has to make a jump and be maybe not the guy, but be a guy. He finished strong last year. But Ray J. Dennis is probably the key. Not a great athlete.
So is he your X factor? Is he your X factor?
Yeah, he's got to be. I mean, he's got to be, because without him, they're screwed. Honestly, if he's not, a lot of these mid-major guys, the best way to do it is just cut their numbers in half. Okay. And he averaged, I think, what he averaged about 19 and 6.
Yep.
All right. Last year at Toledo. If you cut those numbers in half, Baylor's in trouble. Like, he can't do that. He's got to be a guy who averages, 14 and 5. And if he can do that, again, you've got enough pieces around him that I think Baylor can still be a top 25 team for most of the year. And I think that would be a good year because, again, you just weren't prepared to lose LJ Cryer. You felt like if you're Scott Drew, of course Cryer is going to come back. It's going to be his show. And, from all accounts, he wanted to play the point. Well, like, my take is probably would have played as much point this year at Baylor as he's going to play at Houston.
Mm-hmm. So my X factor, I think, is going to be Colby Walter, because I think he is the guy with the highest upside offensively, right? And I also think he's a freshman that's going to be coming in a little bit more physically developed than other freshmen are. We saw him last year at the in Rock Hill at the Adidas event there, and he is a guy that I do think can be a scorer. But I think what's more important here is that I think he's someone that, in theory, has the athleticism and the length to kind of be like one of these pests defensively. And I think that's where the key is going to be with him, is that you're getting a guy in an ideal world that can do some things on both sides of the ball. So I don't think you need him to come in and be a 16-point per game guy. But if he comes in, he averages 12, he averages a couple assists, he shoots like 35% from 3, and he's a 6'5" athletic wing that can guard 1 through 3 and allow you to do some switchable things. All of a sudden, you pair that with a senior in Ray J. Dennis, and you pair that with Jay Nunn, who we know can guard, because you can't play at VCU if you can't guard. And then you have a backcourt that is, I think, good enough to be like a top 40-ish kind of defense. And combine that with Jalen Bridges, combine that with Caleb Lohner, another switchable guy, with, in theory, with the Angiawuna kid and Eve Missy, you got guys that could be rim protectors. And you still got JTT there who, kind of developed into this, I'm going to take a charge and I'm going to make threes and just kind of be a pest and be the voice defensively. That's like, I think it's Jacoby Walter is the guy that kind of, if he hits in the way that we want him to hit, can be that piece that makes it work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it might make sense. But again, freshmen are playing against, 26-year-olds right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
not easy.
A lot to ask. It's a lot to ask.
It is. It is. All right. So let's continue on that point. What should the expectations be for Baylor? I don't think you can say the expectation is winning the league, not when you have Kansas in the league this season.
Right. No. It's to me fighting for second at this point. Kansas is a clear-cut number one, maybe not, maybe in the country, not just in the Big 12. So I would say if you're Baylor right now, you're talking about fighting, some of those other teams right now that, you look at who's next in
you know what
the
the problem
12.
is? You know who's next in the Big 12 now?
Houston.
Houston.
Yeah, but it's Houston and then who? Texas, like after that, they can be in the mix. They can be in the mix for top 3 in the league. And if they finish 3rd in the league this year, listen, I think we've become spoiled to what Scott Drew has built at Baylor now over the last few years. So we kind of expect them to be a top 10 team every year. That's hard to do in Waco. They don't have the same NIL as some of these other Big 12 schools.
Yeah, and it's also, there aren't very many programs in the country that are top 10 every single season. Like we saw Gonzaga come into last season and have a little bit of an off year, right? We saw Duke as a 5 seed last season. Kentucky's had down years, right? It's not when you're playing in a league as difficult as the Big 12, you can be a top 20 team and finish 6th in that conference. And I think that that's going to kind of be what it is for Baylor this year. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. And I do think that they are a top half of the Big 12 kind of a team. But I think that once you get past Kansas and Houston, you're looking at 5 teams that are going to be in that like 11-7 to 9-9 range. And if Baylor's in that range, they make a tournament and they're in a position to, make a run at the Big 12 title, make a run to the second weekend, that will be a good season for Baylor this year.
Yeah, I would give them, my grade for Baylor this year would be, probably a B. I'm going to
go lower than that. I'm going to go lower than that. I'm going to go
C+.
I'm going to go C.
Yeah.
It would be a B plus if they got LJ Cryer back, but losing him, and not only losing him, but losing him to the team that's going to finish, like, projected to finish above you in the conference, that's tough.
Yeah, I mean, you got two good pieces in the portal. But you're right, losing Cryer hurt bad. So yeah, I'll go B minus. B minus the end of the day.
All right. Listen, this has been another episode of the Field of 68's college basketball offseason grades. Jeff, you gave Baylor a B minus, which would have been your best grade had you been at it would have been your best grade in one of your 6.5 years when you were at Arizona this past
5.5 years, and you are absolutely correct.
Our partner for today's episode is Athletic Greens. I started taking AG1 during the college basketball season, and I loved the impact that it had on my energy levels. I'm a big coffee in the morning guy, but by the time that the afternoon would hit, I needed another boost. AG1 helped me tremendously, especially on those days when I didn't want to get up off the couch and go hit the gym. Their tagline is AG1 is comprehensive health and the power of habit in one. And man, that could not be more true. It's nearly impossible to eat and drink in a healthy manner in the month of February and the month of March when you are in my business. And AG1 was exactly the supplement that I needed to improve my gut health and cover my nutritional basis for the day. I've continued that into April. I've continued that into May, and I'm going to continue that the rest of the summer. All I have to do is mix a scoop of AG1 with some water, or maybe add it into a smoothie, and I'm ready to go. Do it after lunch, and you'll be ready to go for the rest of the day. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Go to athleticgreens.com/field68. That's field 68 FIELD, the number 6, the number 8, and you can get yours now. So check it out and help support this show. Thanks.